I took my brother off the streets, gave him a place to stay, and even found him a job. And now, after returning from a 2-month business trip, I've discovered the worst betrayal imaginable. He's been with my wife this whole time. My brother has always had issues with our family. Ever since he was a teenager, he would constantly argue with our parents, storm out of the house, and disappear for months on end. Eventually he would always come crawling back, broken and asking for money. At first our parents helped him, but as his behavior continued, they grew tired of the pattern and eventually banned him from the house. Even then he'd keep showing up, promising he had changed. He would beg for another chance, only to revert to his old ways within a few days, causing more fights, more chaos, until he left again. This cycle repeated itself over and over until my father finally put his foot down and permanently banned him from our home. When my brother ignored this and came by anyway, my parents had no choice but to call the police on him. Despite all this, he kept reaching out to me, pleading for help, saying he regretted everything he'd done and needed a place to stay. For the longest time I ignored him too. But eventually I couldn't stand to see my own brother in such a desperate state. I had 2 apartments in the building where I lived. I was using one, and the other I had planned to rent out. But when I saw my brother living on the street, I made a decision. I gave him the apartment to live in and even got him a job at the company where I work. Yes, I knew it was a risky move, but I did it out of love and hope that maybe, just maybe, he had finally turned his life around. For a while, everything seemed to be going smoothly. I thought he was finally changing, becoming a better person. So, when I went on a business trip to open a new branch in another state, I asked my wife to keep an eye on him to make sure he stayed out of trouble. She assured me that everything was fine, so I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. But then, 2 months later, I was given the opportunity to come home 15 days earlier than planned. I didn't tell my wife I wanted to surprise her. I missed her so much and was excited to spend some quality time together. I brought her flowers, chocolates, and her favorite perfume. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face. When I walked into the house, I went straight to our bedroom, eager to see her. But the moment I opened the door, my world shattered. There in our bed, lay my brother and my wife, sleeping together as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I was numb. I didn't say a word. I just turned around, walked out, and broke down in tears. I don't know how long I stood there crying, minutes, maybe hours. But one thing was clear to me, I wasn't going to let this go. I took pictures of them together, grabbed screenshots from her phone, and then I left. When I called my brother's workplace, I found out that my wife had been lying to me all along. My brother hadn't shown up to work in nearly 2 months, constantly calling in sick. The only reason they hadn't fired him was because of me. I told them to go ahead and terminate his employment, and I'd sign off on it myself if necessary. On top of that, I've started the eviction process to take back the apartment I let him live in since it was never officially transferred to him. I also contacted my lawyer, and we're initiating the divorce proceedings. Neither of them knows about any of this yet. As far as they're concerned, I'm still out of town. I know my brother will end up on the streets again, and when the rest of the family finds out what he's done, they won't have any sympathy left for him. My wife has no savings of her own. She never worked a day in her life and has no family to fall back on. Our assets aren't divided by law, so she won't get a cent from me either. And honestly, I don't care what happens to either of them anymore. Today, they'll receive the news that will turn their worlds upside down. When everything finally unravels, I'll be here to update on how it all goes down. You can check for the next part by pressing share and more.